I don't know him. I'm not here to call him a liar or anything like that. I'm here to correct myself. I said a couple things in my first reaction. I jumped the gun a little bit. I hadn't seen the whole video. I guess I did come on to call him a liar. Yes, I am calling him a liar. So which one is it? He said he worked with the cartel for 3 years. He got indicted in 2011. Now he's saying that he was invited to Chapo's wedding when he clearly stated that Mayito was part of the Juarez cartel, which was the rival of the Sinaloa cartel up until when?
So it was about a year and a half ago when I started doing former Kingpin Reacts with Jay Flores. The intention of the show was that it'd be like one of those YouTube channels or videos where they take a bank robber and they have him react to bank robber clips in movies and TV so that he can give his professional opinion and call out the bullshit in said movie and TV videos. I felt the same way about former Kingpin Reacts. I felt like Jay Flores, being who he is, knowing what he knows, coming from where he come from, he'd be able to see the bullshit and call it out. Especially considering that he's the type of person that wants to put this information out there so that people know the truth. Well, episode 1 started off with a bang with Cocaine Wayne, aka El Primo, who was on the Johnny Mitchell show. And again, it wasn't the intention to create this tension between the two. It was Jay just calling a spade a spade. Who knew then that we'd be here a year and a half later still talking about this? Recently, Donald Wayne Tompkins, aka El Primo, was on Vlad TV. So I figured we'd take this opportunity to go back and do a little retrospective on Jay Flores versus El Primo.
They put me under the pavilion. Only ones standing next to me is the chief. And then that's when this old man walks up. And Chapo is standing to the right of him. No, the left of him. Not saying that, but this old man was doing the talking. They had big ass things of weed laying out. Mm-hmm. They cut a triangle in it, and they asked me, "How is this weed?" I'm like, "Oh, it's good." I don't know, but you know what I'm saying. Sam ain't no good either at it. And the old man starts to negotiate with me. The old man is old man Mayo.
You just met Miles Zambada.
Now I seen Mayo Zambada before this, but didn't know who he was. Because when we first went down in there, who brought the chief over to the Sinaloa, it was not Chapo. It was the old man.
Right.
The fact that he states that he was around El Mayo and El Chapo at the pavilion where he's explaining is basically one of the biggest conferences that there is, and Chapo Mayo wouldn't be out in public like that at one of those places. I think he could assume it. I did some research on El Primo. I couldn't find his paperwork for whatever reason, but I did find information of the person he was dealing with. The person he's dealing with, as he may think was like really high level, wasn't. He was more of a sicario. I know that he was involved with a lot of murders, but he was underneath one of my good friends, El Flaco Salguero, who was the leader of the Gente Nueva cartel, which he formed and basically created and is still active today. They're from Chihuahua. So I don't know this Mesa guy that he was actually dealing with, the person who he considered to be his connect, but I do know El Flaco very well. He was a really good friend of mine throughout my whole time in Mexico. We were introduced by one of my really good friends that was murdered, which was a cousin of his. And we did business together, and he dealt with mainly marijuana, especially in the times where, he could fall off. He was a big kingpin, though. He's currently serving a prison sentence here in the United States. And I believe that his sons and his brothers are actually running his organization still to this day. They're aligned with the Sinaloa cartel. And just to give you understanding why I'm assuming, right? Because this is just my thoughts, is that he was dealing with someone who was underneath Noel Salguero, and Noel Salguero was more of a Chapo affiliate. I believe that the person he was actually dealing with or seeing could have been Noel Salguero, and I'm not sure if it's one of those things where every Mexican looks alike, but I'm sure that the person he met wasn't El Mayo Zambada. As much as I think El Primo wants to say that or sell that, the person he calls El Chief was just another Sicario or just another drug trafficker. I don't think he could ever had that type of importance because some of the people he's actually stating had no relevance really in the drug trafficking organization in the time he's actually speaking about. This is facts that I actually would know, and I just think that El Primo's assuming this. But trust me, when you meet these drug lords, you know who is who. And if you don't, you ask. Those people who don't grow up in the culture, you're going to assume that every boss or every person you meet is a big boss or a heavy hitter, just like the way he assumed that Chief could have been this important person. And if you look him up and you know his background, he was more of a sicario than a drug trafficker. So that basically explains everything. One thing that I do question is that he was explaining that he had been receiving large amounts of marijuana at that time. And for him to say that they brought him marijuana and he didn't know, if it was good or not or whatever he states, I think that's a little suspect.
And that's how I found out that the old man was really the one with the power and not Chapo.
In this particular clip right here, I could actually call you a liar or you don't know what you're talking about. You're reading newspapers, articles, whatever you're reading. So I'll explain again. Mayo wasn't above Chapo. And these are facts. For all the media and these journalists and so-called experts stating that Chapo was underneath Mayo is 100% false. I will put my life on it. Everything that I know, everything I said, everything I've been is that this is what they sell you. But the reality is that Chapo Guzman is a Chapo Guzman, one of the biggest jugglers in the world. And Mayo Zambada is just another really big drug lord. He's been the boss for 50 years. To people who don't understand, they always want a number one and number two. And that's not the case. Chapo's number one and El Mayo's number one. Now we go and we want to put a scale of, who was more powerful, who had more money. That's a different story. So the fact that he states this is that he's reading too many articles and media stuff. And in this particular situation, he doesn't know what he's talking about.
When I first saw El Primo's Johnny Mitchell video, instantly, me, knowing what I know, coming from where I come from, growing up around the amount of people that put up red flags because they weren't telling the truth, I saw some red flags. I didn't watch the whole thing. I immediately, after my red flags, reached out to Jay and I was like, what do you think of this? I didn't start the show with the intent to create any type of beef with anybody. I was simply trying to get to the truth, trying to push through all the red flags and find out what was what. I've grown up around enough liars to know what it sounds like, to know what to look for, to know that they don't even realize it themselves sometimes. They're the hero in their movie or book. But I didn't have any personal problem with El Primo. I had a dude that was a former kingpin that actually seen the game, that knew what it looked like, smelt like, felt like. And he could attest to or call bullshit on what we were hearing from these cartel stories on the internet. The reason I'm not in the former Kingpin Reacts videos is not because my opinion is invalid, but I'd much rather let the person that was there call bullshit. Because for me, it's just an opinion. From Jay Flores to Jay Flores, it's the facts, whether you believe them or not. Same with Primo. As far as he's concerned, it's the facts.
He wanted to send me, I think it was between 8 to 10 tons of marijuana a week. The driver that was going to bring it was there. So me and him was negotiating. The chief was standing next to me. I think we negotiated something like $400 or $500 a kilo, which is 2 pounds, and that's like 200. You know what I'm saying? And that's the agreement we came to. He was happy with it.
There's a lot of things that he knows that are factual. I do believe he had some direct dealings, and a lot of the business that he did were directly involved with El Chief, whoever he calls that. But right here, for instance, I'm gonna call bullshit where there's bullshit. This is bullshit. When you're talking about some of the biggest drug traffickers and drug lords in the world, they know the difference and they understand what drugs are worth in any part of the world. He stated it was from $400 to $500 a kilo of marijuana, which is even more ridiculous. But some of the facts I stated before are still the same. The fact that he is stating that they were negotiating anywhere from $400 to $500 per kilo is still ridiculous, because he's basically saying that they were dealing in kilos, and for sure that's the way it's sold in Mexico. But every drug trafficker knows that in the United States it's served by or sold by pound. Again, at its cheapest, it would have been $400 a pound, because you got to factor in the cost and everything else that goes in with trafficking and still being able to make a profit. So I think that this is complete lie. Another thing that I didn't catch the first time was that he was basically saying that he was negotiating for up to 40 tons of marijuana a month. And just to put that in perspective, that's like 100,000 pounds of marijuana, which the Sinaloa cartel is more than able to actually produce and traffic. But the fact that he stated he was actually negotiating that, like, oh yeah, I'm going to accept that, that's funny to me. That he doesn't state that he doesn't say, oh yeah, I could just take it. This is just him embellishing and him trying to sound important. The fact that he's stating that, one of the bosses was doing this with him when his chief that he keeps stating on is a lower level, cartel member, associate, whatever you want to call it. So I think that this is a great example of him embellishing. It's total bullshit.
The Flores twins were the biggest dope dealers out of Chicago.
When that started to happen, the Flores twins, I believe, were gone. So I don't know. I think they turned themselves in or they got brought in like '08.
Okay.
Or somewhere in there.
Okay.
And at that time,
Meech is gone too.
Yeah, Meech is gone.
So
yeah.
you're it kind of.
Yeah, it's
you're open, kind of the man.
It's an open market for me. Now in Chicago, they still had some heavy hitters up there. It's just they wasn't getting the numbers that I was getting. I understand. I haven't went to Sinaloa yet.
Right.
Well, my chief hasn't went to Sinaloa yet.
Okay.
We're still with Juarez.
Right.
So when I get the complaints that's going over there, I'm tapped in now. Everything that happens, I hear about. That's how I heard about that. Because the guys now, if somebody coming to Michigan getting the bricks cheaper than them, and Chicago's a hub, but it's a different stamp on it, or as they say, a different T-shirt, they're not going to say too much. But what started happening, the reason why they complained, because they were coming in Detroit, coming back with the same bricks that they had on the same stamp on the T-shirt.
Right.
They're like, how do you guys, if we're the main hub and we're taking care of all the states around, how the hell is all our people going to Detroit getting cheaper work there? And it's the same.
And why is that? Because you can move it faster.
Well,
that's just how it goes.
What I figured out that, and they remember I told you about the middleman playing the game,
right?
Holding the world. Oh, it's too high. It's too.
They had middleman.
They started using me as a pace car to keep them honest.
Oh, like, hey, he's getting for 16, so we should get him for 16.
Yeah. Well, what they would do, like I said, just to make sure I understand what you're saying, they may get it at a higher price, or they may get it at the same price, but they're selling it way more. And it's causing it to move at a certain pace, but I'm tearing ass. I'm shooting the lights out in the gym. So the people are coming over to me. But eventually they start giving me cheaper prices than them because they know I'm going to sell it fast and get them the money back.
So right here, Primo states that he was getting such a cheap number, and Johnny Mitchell loves to throw in the Flores twins and Big Meech, and you put him in the same category. Chicago's a hub. He does state that he's confused about the time. So I want to explain. I did turn myself in November 2008, well, December. And there was a drought, and the numbers were very high for the next 2 or 3 years. And I will explain, I was one of the biggest receivers of Sinaloa cocaine in the Midwest, including Chicago. And I received an average maybe anywhere from 2,000 to 2,500 kilos a month from the Sinaloa cartel. And the prices I received were never cheaper than $15,000. That was the cheapest they could go. And for him to state that he was getting the number in Detroit for 16,000, I will tell you this. I could sell in Detroit for an average of $5,000 more than Chicago. If he was receiving the drugs anytime between 2009 to whenever he said he was around, basically Stevie Wonder or anyone could sell a large amount of drugs. Again, Detroit being a smaller city, he would be bigger than Big Meech, basically, if they were just actually selling in Detroit. And you'd have all the Canadians coming down because he's right across from Canada. In Canada, they're going to go for an average of, anywhere from $42,000 to $50,000. So I do think that he was getting probably a good price. I think he's over exaggerating his prices, and he's over exaggerating the weight he was actually thinking he was moving, because if I had him at 16 in Detroit, I probably would have sold 5,000 kilos.
I was charged with, what is that, receiving 5 or more or something like that. And the devil is in the details with that, because this whole thing it turned real political. And it's some stuff that I don't feel comfortable with saying, you know. But I put it like this. When I was sentenced, they had, was it 800 keys or something like that on there? That was the charge. But of course, they didn't charge you with that, with relative conduct.
How did they manage to put together 800 keys? So was this multiple shipments that Chapo or one of the Sinaloans had set you up on?
What they did, because they caught a number of the drivers that said that they were on their way to me.
Okay.
Yeah. They called someone, said they were on their way to me in Detroit and on their way to me in Atlanta. And they charged me with that.
El Primo, which is what they called you, which is what the boys down in Mexico called you, the cousin, right?
Yeah, that's what Chapo gave me the name, Primo.
Chapo gave you this name.
Yeah.
Wow. El Primo.
Yeah.
The Black Hand of the Sinaloa Cartel by Donald Wayne Tompkins.
One thing's for sure, I want to say this about Primo is that he's a great storyteller. He should go and try to get a job for Hollywood because he has a creative mind. He also wrote 3 books, volume 1, volume 2, volume 3, because he has so much important stories to share. And I would say, look, go support his channel at Official El Primo. Buy his books. I'm not a hater if you want to be entertained, but please do not take anything that he says as factual. This guy's living in a fairy tale world that he created in his mind. And there's so many things I want to address. First and foremost, I want to address is that he stated that he was moving hundreds of kilos, and they put themselves in the conversation with me and my brother. And he says relevant conduct and his charge was 800 kilos in the span of 7 years. He said his words, 7 years, 800 kilos. I'm not glorifying that you should be, this big drug trafficker. What I'm basically calling out is the BS that people like to sell when they say millions of dollars and this and that. He just stated that it's hard because of the stress of owing the cartel $4 or $5 million. $4 or $5 million is like 100, 200 kilos. I'm sure that you convince someone with your stories that to give you 100, 200 kilos. There's a big difference between owing someone, owing the cartel, or whoever you thought was a cartel, $4 or $5 million. At any given time, I could owe the cartel anywhere from 60 to 180, $200 million. There's a big difference between the cartel and El Primo.
Now, when I see red flags in the story, I'm going to say them. And then it's up to you, the people, to agree with me or not agree with me. And it's also up to the person that we're talking about, prove me wrong. And when you can't, that's another major red flag to me. I don't think El Mayo Zambada was just anywhere with anybody. I think even for his most close lieutenants, it was probably not easy to see him. Now, people have always asked me for my opinion, and I never gave my opinion of El Primo's story because, again, Jay was the one that can call him on it. I can't call him on it. I can have an opinion. I just can't call him on it. Jay's argument is just because he got a 10-gallon white hat on does not mean he's Mayo Zambada. And just because you're dealing with a Mexican guy from Mexico does not mean you in the cartel. It also doesn't mean that that man is some high-ranking lieutenant or somebody close enough to be able to be in the presence of the tops of the top. And Jay, being that he knows who these people are personally, he would try to break this down to Primo, and Primo wasn't having it. But then things escalated. After 2 segments of former Kingpin reacts based on El Primo, he showed up, jumped on one of my live streams. Him and Jay got to talk.
I'm looking to give the truth, as you just stated, about what this life entails. And there's so many rumors that you hear, and it with me bad, man. I hate to cuss on your channel, but it does. And what bothers me, and I always
feel free, Primo. Feel free. We say all that shit all day long.
That's what's up. That's what's up. But what messes with me is when these guys over here scream all this loyalty shit. And every meeting that I had over in Mexico, whether it was in Mexicali, when I was dealing with the Tijuana cartel, And when I met my guy Danny, that actually took me over to the Juarez cartel before I met Maito, or better known as Mario Nunez Mesa.
Mhm.
Um, no one ever said nothing to me about no fucking loyalty because business was the objective. Business and moving that shit and moving it quick so they could make payments every quarter or whatever they needed to do, depending that I was never speaking from. What I was speaking from was my experience dealing with the cartels, moving up through the ranks of the cartels. Now, the history that you're giving is the history between the different people from the war started in '04. When I started entering the whole process with dealing with Juarez was when in '06. When I switched over and started dealing with the Sinaloa cartel, it was not me dealing with them my own. It was me being brought over with Maito when he joined the Sinaloa cartel, and the old man brought Mayo in. Not Mayo. The old man brought Maito in to the Sinaloa cartel when he switched over from the Juarez cartel. There was an article released over in Mexico stating that Maito was the one that started the war. I was over there in Masalan and went from Masalan through the Devil's Spine over to Culiacan. The little spot over there they had in Culiacan, I think it was maybe about 8 apartments or whatever, and it with a big ass wall around it. We went from there, and when that was going on, the Beltran Lever brothers was there. Everybody was there. It was like a big ass convention. And that's when they decided, I guess, to go full-fledged war. That's what I know. That's what I'm speaking of. When I went into Durango, I rode through Durango. I could smell the fucking weed in the air. And then I got took up a motherfucking road with big ass motherfucking holes in it where a regular car couldn't ride without tearing the suspension up. And they took me 12 to 15 rows through the fucking what I thought was corn. And then I seen marijuana as far as my motherfucking eyes could see and the sap coming up off the buds. I couldn't even fly back with my clothes because they couldn't wash the scent out.
It's hard for people who don't get interviewed like this. When you're in that situation, you're stating some things or whatever. So that's the only reason why I'm actually giving you a backstory of the cartel, because I will tell you, everyone states that they're cartel, and just because you got a gun and you're sent off, it doesn't mean you're part of the cartel. And I get that point of Mazatlan, Culiacan, Durango, and I will tell you, in Durango, the people that run Durango are the Carreras. Okay, some of the biggest drug traffickers, heroin dealers, and weed. I mean, they control every damn ranch of weed there is, and this is why I'm saying that maybe your assumption could be that you were around these people, and in reality, you're around other people like the Cabreras.
Jay,
I
Jay,
work directly with.
Jay,
Yes, sir.
Jay, you're telling me now, and I'm gonna go ahead and get ready to get off of this thing. But I just wanted to enter, talk with you, meet you. I'll be responding soon with the video of my own. And
Mhm.
thank you guys for hosting me.
Salutes.
What you're doing now, again, you're giving a whole lot of history and you're dropping a whole lot of names, no disrespect to you, names that I'm not familiar with. And when I said the war started, understand I'm speaking from my perspective and what I know.
Oh,
I'm only speaking from my perspective, what I know, what I experience. I don't expect to have the depth of
mm.
knowledge that you have on the subject.
Okay. All right.
Not
So,
hold on,
mm,
give me a minute. Neither did I claim to. If anything, I gave you credit. I spoke of you and I spoke of what you guys did softly. And then I said I came along after you were gone. So for me, the war started when I was dropped dead in the middle of something I didn't know what the fuck was going on. So
yeah.
that's the perspective
Yeah.
that I'm speaking in.
Yeah.
I'm not
Well.
speaking
Well.
from what you know.
Well, okay, then it's fair. I understand what you're saying. Then it's fair. And for instance, your homie that brought you on here, then it's fair for me to say that you were wrong. And I'm telling you, your perspective and the things that you stated that I am not, I can't say about your life, but the things that you stated, and I'm gonna stand by it, were wrong. Because again, you're seeing between your perspective and someone who was actually there involved that knows the history, not because I'm a historian, because I was the biggest drug distributor in the history of the United States. And I'm gonna
Okay,
make that,
okay, but
I'm coming from that point.
it seems that that means a lot to you.
No, no, no.
I never claimed that I was the biggest
No,
anything.
what I'm saying, I'm not a historian. What I'm saying, when you say, well, you're giving me about all these backstories, I said the reason why I'm giving them to you, I'm not giving to you because I'm dropping names. I'm giving you the people I was associated with. And if you were there, and like, I'm not stating like, this is my life. I'm not bragging about it. If I told you I know Chapo, I knew him like I go see him and call him whenever I wanted, or I could talk to Miles and Mother whenever I wanted. Like, these people were my business partners, on a hand, day-to-day basis. Like, they know my sleeping schedule. Like, and I'm not stating it to show it off. I'm basically stating what my life was, and I'm stating, I'm not here to give you a history. So I'm explaining that, giving you the benefit of the doubt. I'm saying, well, maybe this will happen, but you're right. These are your assumptions, and I explain it.
Well, I resent the statement. They're not my assumptions. This is what I know, and what is starting to offend me, and it did offend me somewhat in your dialogue within the video that you did, is that you're questioning my eyesight, brother. I mean, I think I see pretty good, and I think I would know who I'm talking to and who I'm negotiating with. Am I saying that they know my sleeping schedules? No. Am
Not,
I saying that
well,
I can
that's where I
call
gotta tell
them?
you,
No, I'm
brother.
not
Like,
saying that.
bro, I'm not here to try to like lead you, and change your mind about something. But I am gonna tell you that I'm gonna call a spade a spade.
His name is Mario Nunez Mesa. You can pull him up.
Okay.
He's called the Butcher of Durango. He killed like 300 people over there, some
Okay,
other
yeah, that
stuff.
was okay.
And
Gotcha.
and as Jay said, he's a serious killer.
Mm.
I don't totally agree
Mhm.
with what Jay is saying about him, and maybe that's what he was because he was a police officer. Maybe that's what he was before Jay went in.
Mhm.
But
Killer, police
how I
officer.
Same shit.
how I know him is something different, and that's how I got over there to meet the old man and with Chapo as well.
My opinion is the idea that you met Mayo and Del Chapo gave you the name El Primo. These are some far-fetched ideas, and a lot of people came to me and said, "Oh, Shy, but what you think? A black man can't get there?" That's not what I think at all. And miss me with the fucking racism. Miss me with projecting your feelings, your ideologies on me. You'd have to see my family to understand it. I'm about logic. I'm about common sense. I'm about finding the truth in the midst of a bunch of lies. And while you do that, you're going to make people uncomfortable. But the last thing you're going to do is blame it on racism when I'm using everything at my disposal to reach the truth. But something that we know around here very clearly, there's never enough evidence for a fool. I don't think that El Primo couldn't get there. Probably could have. I just don't think he did. I don't have to question or ask questions or wonder when it comes to the Flores twins. Why? Everything's out on the table. And for El Mayo Zambada to be there over some weed, that sounds as ridiculous as the people when he was kidnapped that said they fooled him by taking him to look at airstrips that they wanted to buy for the operation. Miss me with the bullshit. When Primo came on the show, I had no problem with that. I'm not a sucker. We spoke on dude. We gave him an opportunity to offer a rebuttal, and he did. And he came on the show, and they had their little conversation, their little back and forth, and he let it be known to Jay, I'll be dropping a video of my own. All right, cool. He came on my show respectfully, and he's been respectful ever since, and I respect Primo. Much more than that ginger jerk-off that we got out of here a couple of weeks ago. Much more than that lying cocaine quarterback punk. I don't have to believe his story. There's parts of it I do believe. There's parts of it that I believe are genuine. But then there's some parts that are grandiose. And that's just what it is. If you put your story out there, prepare to have it scrutinized. It is what it is.
And some of the things that he says, for example, is that El Chapo snitched on him. And this is what he decides to basically put in his thumbnails in his podcast, and this is a story he decided to write about his book, and that is completely fabricated. That's him basically selling the name because he's going to say that somebody in his organization or in Chapo's organization cooperated against him or told on him or snitched on him and he went to prison. It's very different from El Chapo telling on you or you knowing El Chapo or doing business directly with Chapo, because then he states that Chapo would call him and charge him the money. And then he states that, someone else would call him and there would be someone listening to him. So all this stuff is, what I could believe that he thinks happened or he thinks he was actually involved with. And just because I understand who the people he called, he was associated with, I think it's real easy to assume that everyone's a Chapo or everyone's a Mayo, but he's completely false in his beliefs and the story he's selling. That's him embellishing or in his own thoughts and his own ideas and Johnny's own ideas, because in Johnny's eyes, everyone was like this big drug trafficker. Just because you deal with someone who speaks Spanish or a Mexican that was, involved somewhere with criminal activity, it doesn't mean that you're officially plugged into a cartel. The cartels are very large drug trafficking organizations with many layers to it. I've seen him come on different shows and basically think that he was in this special place. It's false. We had business dealings with enforcer, basically a sicario named El Mayito, which is 100% accurate and true. El Mayito, as I stated, I had researched him, and 100% he is factual. He is a real person who worked for the Sinaloa cartel or was under the Sinaloa cartel as an enforcer, basically at the bottom of the organization. And that was his plug or his connect. It's different though. Than him being the connect or him being the plug or him having like a direct association. That is completely fabricated.
Nothing on me, and you can't find this, that, and the other. But you can definitely find Maito, the butcher.
Yes, that's my whole point. I searched you. Here, the claim is about you. You're basically admitting that there's no paperwork on you. You're admitting that there's nothing on you, but there is a lot of stuff about El Mayito. Okay, that's my point. There's a big difference between sicarios and businessmen. All right, very big difference. And that's my point. You call him chief, and then you said Chapo called you. So which one is it? Is this lower level guy your chief? So great. You met someone who was part of the cartel. Congratulations. That doesn't make you this like cartel member. I'm not sure if you got like jumped in or and he was at war in Juarez and in Sinaloa, and that's funny to me. This is what I believe, and this is what I think. You have a spectator sitting, maybe he's sitting, in courtside or on the second row, and he is watching the NBA finals. It's like a spectator telling Steph Curry how to shoot the ball or telling Steph Curry about the game. There's no comparison, bro. And yes, you're the spectator, and I'll be Steph Curry. Or better yet, you're the spectator, and I'll be Michael Jordan, and my brother be Scottie Pippen. You spectated, and you think that you know you were in it because the ball probably fell in your lap one time, and you threw it back. And now you want to get into the gangster stuff, and I will not get into that. That's your personal opinion. There's gonna be a lot of things that you're gonna come to learn, but that doesn't impress me. I know he said that there was paperwork on him. I researched, I couldn't find none. And we also know that the government likes to embellish as well. Unique, huh? That basically goes against everything that Mr. Tompkins, El Primo, says. I think this says a lot. I just wanted to start it off in the proper way. You showed some paperwork. Many people are saying, who am I to actually ask for paperwork? I'm not saying that I care if he cooperated or not, and most likely he probably cooperated. I was just saying, show some paperwork that will give some factual information of some of the things that he's claiming, because he claims a lot. This is not biased research. I've been, doing this basically all day. I didn't think it was gonna go this far. I regret even wasting my time on someone who could be this much of a liar and go to this extent to, sell this fabricated story. But paperwork he produced. This is not paperwork, guys. This is part of his book. I searched it, as you could see, and we couldn't find any paperwork. I bought his books, and for some reason, I couldn't find in that. This is not the way paperwork looks like. Right here, he has related cases. All these people that are related cases right here mention nothing of him. Don't mention him at all. For those of people who are commenting, talking about he did show his paperwork and what else do we want? Like, this is not his paperwork. This is paper with letters on it.
You can look it up. You can find it. And it got a stamp on it in the top left-hand corner showing the date it was filed and all that. Here it is right here.
So great. He showed real paperwork. This is exactly what the paperwork looks like. Exactly how it looks like. I just doesn't show his name on it, huh? That's weird. They're not facts. Not at all. You didn't present no paperwork. You just presented, some writing that's part of your book.
I've also presented some articles. I also presented some of Chapo's paperwork so your people can go find that, since you keep saying nothing can be found.
You did produce paperwork on Chapo and everyone else, and that could be found. There's no argument. Chapo's probably his name is going to be in every indictment or major drug trafficking case in the United States back in those days.
My Mario Nunez Mesa. Look that name up. And I guess I'm making this up too, Karate J. You will receive a ton, 2 tons, 8 tons over a duration of 30 days or whatever the.
But he's the same person that was negotiating. He said 7 to 8 tons of marijuana a week. Basically, he was saying that he was gonna distribute 100,000 pounds of weed a month, or he even said that I think he sold 4 tons of marijuana in a week. He's basically saying that he was selling 7,000, 6,000 pounds of marijuana a week. That's 24,000 pounds of marijuana a month, bro, in Detroit. That's great, or in Atlanta, whatever he said.
He admitted that if he got those prices in Detroit, he could sell 5,000 of them, right?
Again, I'm saying that because he was never, and even himself, when he went on the Connect show, he said he was a weed man, and he states what his indictment was for 800 keys of coke, supposedly, and he never talks about coke. Only when he's talking like this, he always talks about weed, and then somehow he mixes the two. That's the only thing that I'm hearing from him. That he basically likes to intertwine. He never says this and that. He's talking about tons. Now he's saying he's moving tons. Listen, all I said is if I got him at 16 in Detroit, to consider, if he's basically telling me that I never got him at 15, that there's no way I got him even at 16. Imagine you got a lower level dude telling me the prices and what he didn't believe in. I state that you're falsifying all the information you're giving.
But when he got off in the hating, it was clear that he was hating. Mario Nunez Mesa was also an informant, and he started fighting the Sinaloa cartel and was kicking their ass. And miraculously, I gets indicted right around that same time. Why?
So I'm not even paying attention, but this paperwork says 2008, and he got indicted. I think he said 2011. So which one is it? I'm not sure. But this is how he's saying that Chapo told on him. Big stretch, but it's a common theme with Mr. El Primo. Man, this is all just, God, this is him ranting.
Because I was supposed to come down in November, and I think I would have probably seen you. I think that was in 06, if I'm thinking right. Maito wanted me to come down because he said there's a big party he wanted.
So which one is it? He said he worked with the cartel for 3 years. He got indicted in 2011. Now he's saying that he was invited to Chapo's wedding, when he clearly stated that Mayito was part of the Juarez cartel, which was the rival of the Sinaloa cartel, up until when? The years don't add up, bro. That's exactly what I mean. You just basically contradicted everything you said. These are your words. We're just so tired of your BS that we're just going to leave it there and let everyone else go look for it. But you stated that. You stated that you only dealt with the cartel for 2.5, 3 years. You got indicted in 2011, I think April, if I recall you saying. But now you're saying that you were invited to Chapo's wedding. You were going to be like the guest of honor, and you were going to bring his wife a special gift. And you keep saying that your name and Chapo's name is all over it. And I'm just saying, like, this is a great story. I love the story about the Rolex and the Cartier and stuff. And you buying 3 Rolexes. Let's see it, bro. Why can't we see it? Why not come with the receipts? El Primo only exists on Amazon. He named himself El Primo, I guess, and has 3 books called El Primo Volume 1, Volume 2, and Volume 3. That's the only place you get information from. I'm going to say this respectfully, I wish you nothing but the best. I wish you and your family well.
The bottom line for me was when Primo put out his video with claims of paperwork, I saw the same thing Jay saw. And I'm not doing magic to y'all. These guys on the internet, they're doing magic to y'all, manipulating y'all, and they talk in circles. And I'm not just talking about this case. Pay attention to the world that you live in, the news, the internet, the people around you. Question everything. Now, I was inviting and I was waiting for the information. I was willing to look into whatever paperwork El Primo was willing to offer up. And at the end of the day, I didn't see it. Evidently, he feels he did enough to prove his case. I heard plenty about Maito, Mario Nunez, but as far as I'm concerned, Jay and I were watching the same movie. And I keep my eye on El Primo. Maybe his next interview will add the puzzle pieces that I need for it not to look so blurry to me. Keep in mind, this is a very short supercut of all of the things that happened. So make sure you check out the former Kingpin Reacts, Jay Flores versus Donald Wayne Tompkins, aka El Primo. And like I said, be the judge for yourself. Peace.